Hi there, it's Stacy of Living Blueprints, and today I'm going to be talking about how to get into the culture of a company when you started in a remote situation. So a lot of people, if you're lucky enough to get a new job during this global pandemic, you might not be integrating with your coworkers the way you would live on scene. But there have been people who've been working remotely, prior to this, so it's a thing, and there are ways to go about getting to know the culture in a very different type of environment. So again, Living Blueprints, where I talk about everything that has to do with making work and life more meaningful and manageable. So I talk about tips, strategies, and techniques, approach, philosophy, and mindset around making life and work more meaningful and more manageable. So I did a webinar recently, and this is one of the questions that came in. Someone who's starting a new job and wanted to know, how do you get to know the company? And when you're starting in, so much of the advice out there is for the people who are managing or the people who are in HR, but you might be working for a company that isn't taking this seriously enough, doesn't have the time, doesn't have the resources to really look at this. So how can you, as the individual contributor or the person just starting in the role, take on some actions to help integrate you a little bit better? So I just want to start by saying, first days at any job, I find, are no fun, very draining and exhausting, whether you are remote or at home, remote or in the office. Take note though of the things that you do have some advantage with from being at home. If you would normally take a break for 15 or 20 minutes or run out to get coffee or something like that, you could also go and lie flat somewhere and just kind of try to clear your head. There are some advantages to the home environment that I think can help you pause and reset as you're getting to learn a new environment. Again, no fun getting started in any new job. So the categories though of things to work on in your environment around communication, with everyone, dealing with your boss, and then again, the cultural things specifically. So with communication, pay attention to how people are communicating around you, how people want to be interacted with. Or do people respond to Slack? Is that where most of the conversation is happening? Just pay attention to the various channels. If there are channels that are more social focused, awesome, you have an avenue there. If you have any affinity groups or these women's network, things like this, get involved, pay attention, just be remote. You could just you don't have to be fully vocal at first. You can just kind of see how it goes, pay attention to who's doing what. One of the things as it relates to culture too, when you're in any of these groups or meetings, whether you're in a work meeting or affinity group type of meeting, pay attention to people who are talking and who you resonate with, who you seem to click with, even if you don't say anything in that meeting. They're good people to follow up with after, to connect with, and I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But again, it was around communication. Ask tons of questions. You are in a position that it's okay to ask anything in early days. Every time you are beginning to speak in a meeting or in any type of environment, just introduce yourself, and it can be very, very basic, just who you are and what your role is, right? You can also have notes around, what you actually bring to a meeting is a little bit more hidden. You could just have a few notes. People may ask you to say a little bit more about yourself in particular meetings. So you could have a few points written down in advance to help you get that, rolling a little bit easier. You're not sitting around a conference table where it might feel quite different. So with your boss, definitely be clear on expectations. Now, if you're the boss and you have a new person coming in, be paying attention to the other side of this. So if you're the new person coming in, if your boss isn't setting up good expectations or setting up regular one-on-ones, ask for them. Even if they can't do them every week, maybe every other week, ask for a one-on-one if you're not being given it. Ask for timelines, ask for resources. So you're going to get some information about how to approach certain tasks, but is there anyone else you should be talking to? Ask your boss. Are there other people who could, in case I need to reach out for any resources or any actual online resources or tools that I should be aware of? So if you are the boss, set up those one-on-one meetings regularly, and maybe they can be less regular as time rolls on. You could also, if you're the boss, look in the team for maybe a buddy, someone who you want to set that person up with. This way, you can ask someone who's been around for a long time that you trust if they're open to this, and then set some expectations for the buddy, how often they should be meeting with this new person. Again, if you're the boss, check in regularly, reinforce what they're up to and what they're doing, be clear on timelines and resources. I've already said that, but I feel like sometimes these things that seem so obvious aren't being done. And then around culture in general, you know, we used to wait outside of conference rooms for a meeting to get started, and you'd have a chance to do some small talk with your coworkers. So at the beginning of a meeting, you can, you know, ask how the weekend was. Ask, you know, these things, they might not go very far with certain people. They could go further with other people. It's just, you know, the common courtesy small talk before and at end of meetings. Set up coffee chats. I mentioned this earlier. So if you're ever in a meeting and there's someone that you feel like you kind of vibe or resonate with, you want to just chat some more with, set something up, you can do this. You can initiate a meeting. Ask, you know, there are people that you probably should meet in the organization. So ask your boss, who should I meet? Who should I set up coffee times with? And then each person you chat with, is there anyone else you think I should chat with about my role or about, you know, interests outside of work or whatever those things are? What else? Anyone you're working on special projects with, of course, you know, just a one-on-one coffee chat, just to kind of vibe and get to know the person. And what are some questions that you could ask? This one I'd love for people to report in on. What are questions that you're okay being asked? What questions have you asked in the past that you think are cool to ask? You know, some basics. How long have you worked here, right? Where are you from? Check out their LinkedIn profile beforehand to give you some background. Maybe it'll help, you know, get the conversation going. Maybe you have some things in common. I like to ask people what landed them in a particular role or in their career field. You know, I always ask it when I'm interviewing someone for a position, but I just think it's an interesting way to get a vibe on someone's story, what brought them to the current place. And, you know, depending on where you are in your work world, most people, as they advance, it gets complex and dynamic how sometimes, you know, how they ended up where they are, and things might not look like they connect dots, but it's interesting to hear people talk in retrospect about how their career led them to where they are today. It's a great getting to know you question, and it's related to work, right? And then also you could ask, what's a piece of advice you have in terms of getting, you know, familiar with this culture, this environment, this organization. You know, if there was one key thing you wish someone had told you on day one or day two, what is it? I'd also recommend taking notes during these calls or right after these calls. We're getting so flooded with information at the beginning of our work role in a new job. We forget a lot, and I'd say probably are only remembering 10 to 15% of what's being said to you. You might want to refer to these notes later on down the line as more can kind of integrate and soak in. So those are a bunch of suggestions about getting acquainted, getting to know, and getting familiar in a new environment. Again, it can kind of be daunting and no fun, but you're there to serve, and I think most people are going to be sympathetic to the environment and that you're coming in with a not normal type of getting to know you in person type of situation. All right, so that concludes what I wanted to share today. I'm going to post this navigating from home worksheet if you want to download it. There's also a link to a YouTube video on how to use it, but this can also just help to structure your day and can be integrated into your new job, new work, and help you kind of align. And you can review these over time to see how your job is taking on greater focus as you stick around. If you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, I'd love it if you would like the video if you found it useful. Of course, subscribe on YouTube if you find it useful. And I hope you have a really great week. Bye-bye.